G'day guys, and welcome to another Blender Buzz tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how we set up hair dynamics in Blender. Now, hair dynamics is pretty much making hair interact with the forces in your scene. For example, if you don't have hair dynamics enabled, everything in the scene might be moving, you might have wind blowing, but your hair is just going to be standing still because there's no dynamics. It's just existing in space, but it's not actually interacting. And I'm going to be showing you what hair dynamics is, and keep in mind this is an introductory tutorial. It's not actually a final animation, final product. It's just to show you guys how hair dynamics works and why it is useful. So if for example, one of the things I'm going to be showing you is how we can use like force fields, how we can use force fields to interact with the hair, and how we can actually make the object itself move around. So without wasting any time, let's get right into the tutorial. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get into Blender, and I'm going to just go ahead and delete everything in my scene by pressing A and then X and just deleting that. And I'm also going to go ahead and just enable my screencast keys, and that enables you guys to see what I'm doing. Now, one thing I wanted to show you first is how we set up the hair dynamics, okay? And then once we've set up the hair dynamics, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you different ways we can use hair dynamics. So I'm going to go into my front orthographic view. I'm going to go ahead and make this cycles render, which is really important because a lot of the features and settings that we're actually going to need in here can be found in cycles render. So once we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and add mesh. I'm going to add a UV sphere. I'm going to go ahead and just enable smooth on that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our particle settings up here with our object selected. I'm going to go click my particle settings. I'm going to go new, and instead of having to type here to emitter, I'm going to make that hair. I'm going to enable advanced, okay, and I'm going to make the length 1.4 or about 1.5, okay, around about that length. And then I'm going to go ahead and also just what else do I want to do here? I think that's it. Maybe make this random. Also, we don't want the emission number to be 1000. I want that to be 300. Okay. And I'm going to go down here where we say see display. Open that up, and we're going to open up children. And instead of having this on none, we're going to make it interpolated. Okay. We're going to go to our display. Excuse me. Go to our children display here, and this here is set to 10. We're going to make this 5. Okay, in the display, and we're going to make the render 5 as well. Okay. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what hair dynamics does. Okay. Now usually hair doesn't do anything if it doesn't have hair dynamics enabled. So what it essentially does, it makes, when you run a simulation or you play your animation, it actually makes the hair react. Okay, it gives dynamics to the hair. Now this doesn't currently have hair dynamics enabled, so if I were to press Alt A to play, you're gonna see there's nothing happens. My hair doesn't move, it's just dead still. It doesn't have any dynamics to it. Now to make it actually be able to interact and animate and have movement to it, we want to go to our particle settings here, and we want to go ahead and enable, if I go up here, this option here called hair dynamics. So you can tick the box, open up the options, and if I press Alt A now, you're going to see the hair falls. It's actually now like real hair. It's gravity is affecting it in the scene. It can't just stand up the way it wants to, so that is much more realistic. But one thing that we want to do here is I don't want my hair to be so easily bended. So what we can do here, we can go to these settings here, and we're going to have an option called stiffness. Now stiffness is probably one I use the most. Okay, there's all these other settings here if you want to do some more advanced things, but the main thing you're usually going to be using is stiffness, because if I want my hair to not be as affected by gravity, I might make that 9. And now you can see it's kind of somewhat stiff. If I bring that down to 0, it's nothing. Bring it to 0.8. I think 8.8 looks quite good. 1.2. I like 1.2. I'm going to go with 1.2. So if I move this around now on my scene, have a look at it. It's like actually reacting. And a really cool thing with Blender is that it actually allows you to do this live. So right now I'm not even, if I just quickly stop the animation, I just run this, or if I run the animation and I move this around in the scene live, what's going on here? Yeah, you can see here, it actually interacts, which is really cool. And it does it really quickly too, which is really nice. If you have your particle settings set low, if you have like 30,000 particles, it probably wouldn't do that. So now we have hair that has dynamics added to it. Now one thing I want to do here is I want to go here to where my quality steps are. Where is that? I think it's the quality steps here. Oops, no, that's not the quality steps. I haven't used yeah, steps down here. Go to display, and if you increase the steps here, you can see that if I decrease the steps, the hair looks kind of like really low poly, if that makes sense. So if I increase it, it just becomes smoother. So I'm going to make this free. Now one thing you have to keep in mind in the display, when you mess around with this step here, it is going to be slower, okay? Because it's actually more calculation it has to do. And these other settings here you don't have to worry about. So we pretty much now have our little ball here, some hair set up. Okay, and if we quickly put a lamp here and we'll quickly see what the hair looks like, because we might want to render out an animation. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, see, we can see here the hair is around about the thickness I want. So I'm going to go ahead and just make my world background black. Okay, like so, solid black. I'm going to make my lamp, make that free, so it's stronger. So I go to my front view. I'm going to enable my GPU so it renders faster. Have a look at that. So this is what our hair actually looks like, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and just go make the thickness on mine. If I go to my particle settings, select my ball again, go to my particle settings, and if I go down to the very bottom, the cycles hair settings, I can make the root thickness free, and I can just leave the tip, maybe make it 0.02 like so. Okay, and if I go ahead and render it now in front view, we can see it's a lot thicker down the bottom. So if I quickly animate that, pause it there and then render, you can see it is now bent, and that looks kind of cool. And this is really useful if you, like for example, if you have like a character with hair on it, and you want the hair to kind of interact as the character's moving, you can use hair dynamics, and it's fairly simple to set up. I think where it becomes tricky is where you have to make it work with other modifiers. I think that's where it becomes a little bit more challenging, but overall it's pretty easy to set up hair dynamics. And I'm going to go ahead now and set up an animation to demonstrate how we can use hair dynamics. Okay, so if I take my ball here, okay, and I enable my auto keying down here, and I'm on frame 1. I'm going to go ahead and just move this a tiny little bit so it puts in a frame. I'm going to go here to 60, move it to here, go to 120, move it down to here, go to 170, maybe move it up there, and so on. Move this here, maybe move it down here. Okay, so if I play this now, the animation, you're going to see now it's actually interacting with it's almost like this air in the atmosphere, and you can see the hair particles are now reacting. Now another thing you can do, if you wanted the hair, for example, to move without the object moving, for example, say for example you had wind blowing in the scene, what we can do, and this is the second way I'm going to be showing you, okay, what we can do is if I select my object here, go to my first frame, disable auto keying, I'm just going to open up a new tab here. I'm going to go to dope sheet, and I'm just going to press A in here to select all of these keyframes here, and go X, delete keyframes. Okay, so that animation is now dead. So what I can do is I can go ahead, maybe put my cursor here, go add, and I'm going to go force field, and I'm going to go ahead and add a wind. Okay, and if I go to my physics settings here, I'm going to increase the strength to that. So if I play it now, you're going to see that this wind is actually now blowing on that. And what you can do is you can actually animate this simply by, with your force there selected, you can go here to frame 1, for example, and I have a strength of 13, so I'm going to press I over this, I'm going to move up a little bit. I'm going to increase the strength to so, maybe to 30, and I'm going to press I again, and go here, and decrease it a little bit, press I, and go here again, press I, increase it, and so on. You can see here what I'm doing. I'm just, you know, making the strength variate throughout the animations. If I play it now, you're going to see that it is creating this wind effect. So you got strong wind, the wind kind of dies down a bit, wind goes up a bit again, kind of stands still there for a little bit. And this is really cool. This is something that you can do with Hair Dynamics. And if you go down here to your force add and go to your force fields, you're going to see you have a big array of them right here, okay? But I'm just going to use the wind. It's quite simple to show how it works. So if I go into my front view now, what I could do is, so if I like added a camera, for example, go to my camera view, I can simply now just animate this out, and I can have like a cool Hair Dynamics animation. So that is something that you can do. I don't know if I'm going to render out an animation in this one, but I'm just showing you guys how to use Hair Dynamics. Okay, this isn't. Sometimes I do tutorials on scenes. Sometimes I do tutorials on showing you different features within Blender, and I think that Hair Dynamics is something I think you guys can definitely use. It's quite useful. It does come in handy more of character kind of work. If you're doing more like hard surface stuff, it's pretty unlikely you're going to be using Hair Dynamics, but this video is here if you ever need it. So those are some of the different ways you can use Hair Dynamics. It's really simple to set up, and I've showed you how we do it with animation by moving the object around, how we can set up a force field and animate it to affect the hair particles, and that's pretty much it. That is Hair Dynamics. This is pretty much an introduction to Hair Dynamics in Blender. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and you liked it. If it's boring and you want to see something else, do go ahead and check out some of my other tutorials on my channel and subscribe. I also have a channel, a website called Blender Buzz Courses, where there are paid courses that go step by step on how to make complete animations. For example, there's a robotic arm animation, and there's some other animation ones on there as well. But right now, the most popular one is actually the robotic arm animation one, which you guys should definitely check out. It's very affordable, and it's really in-depth, and it covers everything. So that's going to be in the link below. You'll see a link to that website. So I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching.